quite a while on LinkedIn, I would see time and again she would post book reviews, very short snippet, the book that she has read. I would see time and again she would post book reviews, very short snippet. And so I asked her, I requested her whether she will be okay to review, and she agreed. And we chatted for a while. And this book, first I thought it is in the same genre as what we have been reviewing. We have been reviewing Freedom Manifesto and so on and so forth. I thought it would be in the same genre. Probably, I mean, at a very, very high level, you can say that it is. But I've been reading about both Ravi and this particular book. I'm fascinated. Especially Kavita has been talking about that meta skills, which is what I'm fascinated. And as we always do, I've told Kavita that we are not only interested about the book and the book review, but more about how it impacted her, how she is applying those skills in her life, how she has put it forth, and what she learned because she applied those principles in her life. And so I'm excited to listen to her. Kavita, welcome to Gravitas Wins show. And over to you, Kavita.
Thank you, Joseph, first of all, for inviting me. I'm always excited, about books, especially those, I don't look at the quantity of books, but then the application, the learning from it. So this is one book which is very special. Ravi Venkatesan is, a well-known leader, and he's currently the chairman of Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. But more popularly known as being the chairman of Microsoft. He's also been the chairman of Bank of Baroda, been the founder of Social Venture Partners. Initially started off in Cummins. So I've been actually following Ravi for, I think, almost since 2018. When, I had a stress fracture, and then, I happened to be on LinkedIn more than normal. So I was very fascinated with, the kind of vision and thought process that Ravi brought out. He's an excellent orator, so that kind of got me, following him. And we talked about gig economy, learning agility way back then. Today it's more common. So I really was waiting for his book to come, which I read a couple of years back. So I'll just, give you a brief about what he talks about in his book, and how, I have personally applied those learnings and how it has impacted me. So the three he talks about, in this VUCA world, where a lot of things are changing, and especially so with the AI, right? And the fourth industrial revolution. How jobs will get eliminated. What are the things that you should do to survive and navigate these these disruptions which are happening? So there are three meta skills that he talks about. So what are meta skills? Meta skills are nothing but skills that go over and beyond your core hard skills, or your core technical, or your subject matter skills. One of them, what he interestingly talks about, is learning agility. This is something that I've been, really fascinated from the time he started talking about it. So, learning agility, he says, is trying to, actually use the kind of learning that you have and get out of complex situations, right? Apply the learning that you have, and for newer challenges. So that's something that, it's basically, to quote him, right? It's the ability to quickly size up a situation or problem and decide what you want to do with it. And that is to make sense. And that is something that in today's world is very much needed, right? With the changes that are happening so rapidly. So that is one key meta skill that personally I've used to in my career. In terms of being in different industries, how I have quickly learned to learn the ropes of a new job, and how I've used that learning to actually solve problems. I'll just take a pause here. Does anyone have any questions on the learning agility bit? I wanted to be more interactive and just, I'm not a person who loves listening to my voice.
I think that's a problem that most of us have. Uh, we don't like listening to our own voices. But yeah, Gagan, please go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah. Hi, Kavita. Thank you so much for introducing us to this book and the author, Ravi. I wanted to know, you mentioned about how you have started or you have implemented some of these meta skills in your career. So can you go a little deep in these and share some specific skills?
Sure. So there are three meta skills he talks about. One is the learning agility, right? So in terms of, if you look at, to learn, unlearn and relearn things. So if, for example, if let's take example, I've moved to a lot of industries, right? And I took a career break. So I've had, I've done entrepreneurship and then I've moved on back to the corporate career. So that involved a lot of learning. For example, when I moved back to the corporate world, to a company called Pluralsight, there was a lot of learning that I needed to do in terms of technology, in terms of platform. The whole, customer success was a new scenario and a new role itself. And being in the SaaS world, I had no clue about what a platform was. The last I remember selling was shrink wrap boxes of Microsoft, and here we were in the cloud era, and everything's platformatized. So I think that was when I really took to learning very, very deeply. So as a continuous learner, I said, if I don't learn what the platform is and unlearn some of my old how products worked or how companies work today. That is one area where I started learning about the platform, about the product, about how customer success work. And how I solved some of these skills also that I picked up. I'll just again, give you a few examples as we go along. This learning agility is one thing that's where I really became, addicted to learning.
Kavita, if I may press you a little further, and this is, kind of relevant to almost most of us in this particular discussion now, is that, as you said, obviously we may not have switching the entire industry or switching from entrepreneurship to corporate, and I'm sure you were in corporate earlier, but we are all moving from individual contributors to managers and managers of managers. And even though we might be in the same industry, technology is changing so rapidly. So things are all moving fast.
Yeah.
So when you said you moved from entrepreneurship to corporate, and obviously from selling in boxes to platformization and so on and so forth, can you, like in the learning agility part of it, can you tell me what ways you learned?
Okay.
Did you, like, say example, were there internal trainings, or you formed your own curriculum? I mean, how you went about learning, and from that, you have done it multiple times. You went to upgrade and Pluralsight, and then now to upgrade as well. So you've done it multiple times as well. So say, for example, if I were to change jobs, I were to change industries, I were to change roles, how should I approach it?
So there were actually two things that I did majorly. One was, I think you need to personally have, the determination. I think the circumstance that you are in actually pushes you to get out of your comfort zone, right? Of doing what you really like to do, to what you need to succeed. So there were two things I did. One was I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of self-learning about the platform. The company had a lot of videos. Self-learning was possible. Secondly, I learned from people. There were a lot of people who were helpful on the job. So if there was, for example, I needed to learn to use Salesforce, or I needed to learn how to make pivot tables, right on the job. So that's when, the people experience. I took help from people, self-learning. And so even today, if I'm stuck with a problem, thanks to Google, now maybe ChatGPT, but thanks to Google, the first thing I do is I Google, okay, how do I do this? So that is one, I think self-learning is really great. Learning from your peers, two things, and on the job. We'll definitely learn on the job.
Thanks, Kavita. Go ahead with the other skills.
Sure. Gagan, I hope that answers your question. I'll just come to it and when we come to the soft skills too.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It really adds a lot of value, what you have said. Thank you.
Thank you, Gagan. So then the second one Ravi talks about that you need to have in today's world is the entrepreneurial mindset, right? That is, it's basically to identify opportunities and how do you solve problems. So he talks about, how, see, we are all faced with problems, right? I mean, be it traffic on the roads, be it, the infamous Bangalore traffic and the numerous traffic signals that we have. So how do we solve these problems? To have that entrepreneurial mindset is very important. How do you be the change that you want to see in the world? And just go ahead and take the first step. If you see, for example, in a crisis situation, right? I'll give you an example. It was a company where we had a medical emergency for a lady who suddenly got into a panic attack, and so those are times when you actually see leaders emerge, right? So people who how do you instantly take charge of the situation, and how they actually got the ambulance on time, and that's when personally I saw people who were very quiet, who were not not really did not have authority, or very a fly on the wall kind of person, who actually took charge of the situation, ensured that the lady was actually sent to the hospital on time. A similar example is, a few years back, and again, stuck in a traffic jam. There was an ambulance which was, coming for, and stuck in traffic, and everybody is, just honking, not knowing what to do. That's when this person, two youngsters, just got out of their vehicle, and then started directing the traffic, and the ambulance got to move. So and these are for problems, small problems. How do we actually have that entrepreneurial mindset? That is something that he says is very important, because the problems are more, and unless you have those leaders come forward to take up those opportunities and solve the problems, I mean, it's it's, you just can't keep sitting and waiting. How did I use this in real life? See, some part of, I won't say it's because of Ravi's book I did this. There were some things that I was already doing, and this was more an affirmation for me in the book. So, for example, I've been wanting to teach, children in government schools. I wanted to volunteer, and I found that overall, even with my children or kids in school today, they're not happy learning, right? They have to learn, they're learning, either because of, you have to do your schooling, right? The teacher comes, teaches, they learn, and, that's it. So that was something that, was on my mind. And I said, how do you make education more likable? And this was something that I wanted to do for underprivileged kids, because our kids are privileged, we know the kind of privileges that they have. So I went to this government school. It's a small one. It's a pre-primary school with 30 kids. and said, I can't change the whole system, but let me try with what I can. I had no, I had some very, very short stints of teaching when I was a student with, people in your community, any of your juniors, you teach them something. So I walked into this small school which has 2 rooms, about 25, 30 kids. Met the headmistress and said, I want to teach these kids English. She said, okay, you can come. I said, I'm available on Saturdays. Would like to spend about an hour, hour and a half teaching them. But I would like you to give me the freedom of, how I'm teaching these kids. Don't put any restrictions. So the headmistress was kind enough and said, yes, as long as the children benefit, it's fine. So what I started doing was every Saturday, I took a Bluetooth, first of all, for the kids, and started playing these small nursery rhymes from YouTube. Only the song initially, so that they could learn things like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Or these kids didn't know the basics, ABCD and basic body parts, etc. So that kind of, that's something that I'm very passionate about, and I've seen the kind of happiness that these children get, rather than being in a rote learning and the stick environment. They look forward to that 1 hour session on Saturday. So this is something that I've kind of implemented personally. Any questions here? Anybody wants to share your experiences, how you have, used this entrepreneurial mindset?
This is interesting, Kavita. The entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, I've not thought in that particular line of entrepreneurial mindset. Obviously, you'll have to take in charge. One thing that you are right. Like, I mean, Paul Graham says, there are two sets of people. One, those who are complaining about the problem, and the second one is those who are taking charge of the situation and solving that particular problem. And those two, the Venn diagram does not interface. Like, I mean, so you are right. I mean, either we are complaining about the problem or we are doing something about the particular problem and solving it. But I never thought, like, I mean, purely from a corporate world, you'll have to do it. The examples that you gave are also nice. I would really wait for others to pitch in as well.
Yeah, a quick comment, Joseph. So I agree with Joseph. I've also never thought about it consciously to have that entrepreneurial set of thinking. But I would say I read something similar to what you were saying, Kavita. This is a story from a rural school where students were not coming and attending classes. They were going on leaves. So school came up with an innovative solution that anybody who takes leave or is on holiday, he needs to write an essay on what he or she did for the whole day, what was his or her learning, and next day in the assembly, they will be given a platform to speak on it for 5 minutes. So that was also something related to what you said, to look for solutions which in the end improve the outcome. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, that's an interesting one. Yeah, to get them and to come to school and stay there is a big challenge. Joseph, you're on mute.
Yes, yeah,
you're on mute.
Yeah, Kavita, sorry about that. Kavita, I don't know whether Gagan is still there, but he is working in a social impact organization.
Oh.
Amazing, amazing work that they are doing. I think previously he worked with an organization that was issuing spectacles for free for the teeth pluckers.
Okay.
Amazing work.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Joseph. Yeah, Kavita, I am working with an organization which primarily works with school children from low income communities or from bottom of the pyramid. So we provide free spectacles and do eye screening for them.
Oh, that's very nice. Gagan. Very heartening to hear that. So the third meta skill that Ravi talks about is soft skills. The very, very underrated skills, right? We all focus on how many degrees we get, that are you coding well? Are you a great accountant? Are you a great salesperson? Are you a great architect? But then we forget that, the kind of soft skills that are needed, right, in today's world is most crucial. So he talks about things like communication, coordinating with people, stakeholder management, which I found, especially, when I came back to the corporate world, I was a little skeptical, and also there was some kind of a fear of, what has changed, with the corporate world. Have people changed? But I found that, these are things that really take you where in the last 7-8 years, I found that these are actually skills that help you work with people better, collaborate with people better. Right? It's not enough just to have those hard skills, but good communication skills that, also, which is even the World Economic Forum talks about it today, right? Critical thinking skills, your skills of actually being empathetic to people. Emotional intelligence is a big thing today. So these are skills of which, you'll see a lot of people, I work with companies also who have, who are very high on soft skills too. And they are actually, doing great business with corporates because that's the need of the hour. It's not enough if you just have tech skills, but hard skills, but you also need this to manage people. So this is something that Ravi says will, help you in this era if you have these soft skills. How to and he talks about how he has managed stakeholders with his stint with Bank of Baroda, where he had very little. That's another problem we face, right? Where you have how do you manage people without authority, right? How do you influence them without having authority? Not everybody has, if you're a CEO of a company or if you're, let's say, a CFO of a company, you have that authority or position, but without having that authority, how are you able to influence? So that's stakeholder management is something that is really essential in today's world. Anybody's had any experiences with that?
This is one of my favorite topic, Kavita, in the sense that how do you manage, how do you influence? I mean, obviously, that's why this is called gravitas. Gravitas is that particular characteristics where you are able to influence people without that authority. And as you rightly quoted some of the examples, that is gravitas when you're stuck in the traffic, there is an ambulance coming in, you can stand by and watch, you can sit in your car and watch, you can be in your bike and watch, or you can take in charge and do something about it. So yes, this is one of my favorite topic. I've learned from some of the managers. One of the things that I have especially seen, I used to work with IAS officers in India, government of India. So one of the things that I've seen is, yes, as IAS officers, they do have power, but oftentimes they will be in a situation where the power is subdued or they cannot really exercise the power. Like obviously there are ministers and there are corporate other guys who may or may not listen to them. And they cannot just throw and I'm an officer, you have to do it, and so on and so forth. I mean, it'll not work all the time. What I've seen is some of the smartest folks, they know when to wield that particular power and when to go in, okay, listen to them and say, okay, what do you need to make this a win situation for you? I will do it, come on. And they don't mind giving credit to others.
Exactly.
They don't mind bringing others into the fold and take the spotlight, right? One example that I always quote in this is Dhoni. He will come in on the last over, he will do all his magic, but when the trophy is there, he'll be at the back of the team, and he will not be the one holding the trophy.
Right.
I mean, I think there's a lot to learn as a leader from that particular thing. I would open it up for anybody else to share some of your experiences. Surbhi, Ashwini, Amit, I mean, feel free to comment. Padma, anybody. Rohit, Kavita, maybe.
Okay, sure. So that's something that, I'm still learning in terms of stakeholder management, how we work with teams, right? And what are the kind of, who are the influencers? How do you get people to work together? How do you manage, collaborate with teams? I think that's a very important skill. I'm still getting there. So while he talks about another thing is leadership, which he says is very, very deficient in today's world, right? And what is leadership? For us, leadership normally means, a person who has some authority, some position. But then for him, what I really found in his eyes was leadership is not a title, it's an act. And leadership can be also, you don't need to be leader for the whole, let's say, this whole month. Leadership can be only for that particular time. And he talks about three people, one of them being Rehan Sheikh. I'd rather, I prefer to choose to talk about him because he's just a seventh grader who's in Ahmedabad, and he set up these. He's part of the Teach for India, and he set up these small learning centers within the community so that the kids in the area could learn. And there was next to the school there was a big garbage dump. So actually, so there was, with all that landfill and all the stench that was coming around, he worked with an NGO and got things done. And, the children also were able to learn in a very hygienic environment. So, what makes a seventh grader actually, use those leadership capabilities, right? That is one. And then also he talks about Padma Shri, who brought in the solid waste management in Bangalore, where, the Bangalore is very famous for, the dry waste and wet waste segregation, right? So she was a harbinger, and how she's just a homemaker and, works part-time, right? So he says leadership is not really, it's just how you garner people around the, the kind of, and inspire people with the, with that, that particular mission in mind for you. So she has also done a great job. And then, they've set up solid waste management centers. There's a biogas plant that was set up. So, she ensured that, these didn't go to the landfills. Have you heard of any other stories which, give this about leadership? Would be interested to know. Anybody, it could be a local, your neighbor, it could be your friend, it could be yourself.
Yeah, please chip in with your, experience, what you know. Anyone, Sukhvinder, Gagan, anybody, Padma.
Yeah, I'll come in there, Joseph. Yeah, Kavita, this is illuminating. Like leadership is an act. I never thought about it. I always thought leadership is related to authority. But today you have opened my eyes to that, and I could relate to something that my boss tells me often is leadership is leading from behind. Let others be in front, take the credit, as Joseph said. So it's really stimulating hearing to you. I'm getting goosebumps on my arms. Thank you so much.
Joseph, I know you are asking me to pitch in, and the only reason I'm like dumbstuck is I'm trying to compare what can I do comparable in the US, or have I done something here. I know these are wonderful things. These are always like dear to my heart, including when she says that going and helping, our kids have the privilege of education, but that has been a very close subject to my heart, is helping the ones who need it, because we know education has brought us a long way. It's very hard to, just preach, but only when you sow that seed, you will know how much of a difference that's made in their life. But yeah, I'm just grasping, I'm soaking it all in as a sponge, but where to start and how to start, right? I'm trying my best here to help with women who are in distressed situations in the US. But other than that, for education part, I've always wanted to, give back in India, not in the US. But these are all really good, valuable points, and just glad that, people are coming to me through Gravitas. So thank you so much, Kavita.
Thank you, Padma. I mean, it really, this is something that I think, this was actually a very, very, like Gagan said, something very enlightening for me, right? It was because I too thought leadership was always associated with authority. So this really resonated very well with me. So I don't wait nowadays after this book to kind of showcase those acts of leadership. I don't wait for authority, and I just go ahead and do that. So that's a learning from me.
And one more thing that I just want to add is I've never seen this under the lens of leadership, but an act of service. So it's really baffling that service is leadership as well. So, you can look at it from that point.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I want to serve. It's like I want to be a leader by doing these things. It's enlightening and even more powerful. We all feel like we want to do service when we are in a better place. No, but if you're leading, you don't need the power of money or anything. You can just do what you want to do at whatever stage in life you are, because that's an act of leadership, not an act of service.
Yes. Thank you for that, Padma. Absolutely well said. Yeah. So, I mean, I know we are already halfway through. So, and there's so much more, that he talks about being a leader. I'm going to, take one point that, I feel he says that for, how to be a leader, right? He talks about get going, and then he says you have to be good at sense making and storytelling. That's something, that's quite interesting. Right? He says sense making, obviously, with data, and storytelling, that you have to have the art of telling a story, how to develop courage. I think this is something that, a lot of leaders that we look up to, right? How do you develop that courage to, go ahead and take that step? Earn and retain trust, he says. And he's saying also, be willing to sacrifice, like how Simon Sinek says, leaders eat last. Especially I found this, in today's scenario, right, when you're talking of so many layoffs, he says be ready to take that first pay cut before you ask your team, your members to do that. I mean, so what I find fascinating with Ravi's thought process is that, it's not just, now this book was written 2-3 years back, but it's relevant today. And what he talks about learning agility, he's been talking about for the last 7-8 years. He talks about growth mindset, which is a big thing now, but again, he's been talking about it 7-8 years back.
Kavita, would it be possible for you to go a little deeper on how to develop courage? Especially, I don't know what's the connection between the leadership and courage, in the sense that is it one influencing the other, or one is the causal effect of the other? Say, for example, like, if I have courage, I will take charge of the situation.
Yes.
Or the title, and I'm pushed into the situation, I get the courage because I'm in that situation, and then I move on. Do you have any thoughts, and then how you have developed courage?
So it is basically, let's take, for example, Gandhiji, right? I mean, if he didn't have the courage to, go towards the goal, of getting us freedom, right? It's that first step forward. That is the courage that he talks about. I'll give you maybe a very personal story. Right, a few years back, almost 14 years back, 15 years back, my son fell accidentally into the swimming pool when he was just about 3 years old. It was, a 2-minute kind of thing. And, when we, I saw him, in the swimming pool. And then there's another friend who saw him. I just froze for 10 seconds, despite it, being his mother, right? So there's this friend of mine who had the courage to actually, of course, my thought was, oh, I don't know swimming, right? But this friend of mine was actually, she knew swimming, and then she took the first step and she started walking, because he was at the deeper end. She started walking into the swimming pool, and I followed her. So I think that's the kind of courage that, that taking that first step forward, and taking that risk, that is the kind of courage that he talks about.
Thanks, Kavita.
So then just one more, see, there's a lot of things he talks about how not to get tempted. I think I'll just now move on to the, in the interest of time, in terms of what is it, how to navigate your career. Right. This book itself, I finished in 2 days. Normally, especially if I found his style of writing very unique. The book talks to you. For book lovers, you know how it is. I mean, again, so what really he gives in terms of navigating your career in today's VUCA world. Now it's become Bani and, whatever terms we use, right? It's just that it's changing so fast. You just cannot, sit back. So how do you navigate your career? He says, forget about jobs. Forget about the fact that somebody could start in a company and retire in a company. Unfortunately, I've never had that good fortune, though I've, wished to be like my father, who started with one company and retired there. But he says you forget, because the world is changing, right? And which is what we are seeing today, even in the last 1 year with all the massive layoffs. He says you join what is called the passion economy. And that is, again, passion economy is more about the ikigai. Do things what you love, what the world wants, what the world is willing to pay for, and what you're actually good at. It's the intersection of that. He says, join that. Don't look at going after only the traditional job route. An interesting thing which I've actually used is don't chase opportunities, attract them. So this is something that's really worked with me even for my job transitions. I mean, of course, there are times we want to move on from our jobs and we go hunting, we go, we apply for n number of jobs. He says, just attract those opportunities. And how do you do that? Excel at your work. If you're working in a job, just give it your best, right? And the idea of leaving a legacy. To me, with every company that, whether it was a short stint or a longer stint, leaving that legacy and creating an impact was important. Then he says you stand out of the crowd, right? That's when you also attract those opportunities. How do you stand out of the crowd? There are various ways, again, excelling at work, taking extra initiatives, something that normally people, nobody wants to be the first to raise their hand. That I think that even in school, right from school, we are used to that. Then he talks about, catch the big wave. He says, if you look at what's happening today, right? For me, I mean, in my career and where I'm looking at, SaaS is really big. SaaS is the future, right? Nobody wants to buy products forever. They want to have like your subscription model, right? So that's the kind of thing that he says, you catch the big wave and be there. And he says geography is destiny, which I feel is very, very important, right? I had the good fortune of getting good schooling. I studied in a metro. My parents were very sure that they wanted to educate me. I had the good fortune of studying in good B schools because of the fact that, I was in the right place. So this is something that, I found makes really good sense. I want to take a pause here. Any of you have any thoughts on this?
The previous one, Kavita, and obviously the last 3 points that you mentioned, the passion economy, catching the big waves, and geography. In this Gravitas Wins, at one point in time, I took a book review of a book called Smart Kids.
Okay.
And then he talks about almost the similar ones.
Okay.
Catch the big waves.
Yeah.
And obviously to catch a big wave, you need to know that wave,
Right.
and you will know that wave only if you are in that vicinity of the people who are bringing that particular wave. And then I hope, at least the people who are working with me, Amit and Surbhi et al., they are listening to this properly. Obviously, one of the things that I would say, see, we have been in this COVID, and then we are coming out of this COVID. And in my office, Amit, and he joined with two other persons, and they said, we are going to run a hackathon.
Okay.
I was very skeptical, to be honest, because we are just coming out of COVID. Will people come in? So I was keeping on pressing, okay, we will have hackathon. You guys are all proposing, but we will have it online. They said, no, it has to be in the office. People have to come in. They were very adamant. I said, and then along with obviously the other management, I'm not the owner or I'm not the decision maker, but I'm part of that particular team. So we said, okay, and they did everything. I saw that initiatives, because we'll be in a meeting and then they will be whispering, those two will be whispering, you call that guy? Have you confirmed that guy? And then, that'll all go in. And, 2 days we did that. It was an amazing success. Every participant was like, they were very appreciative, and I would roam around the entire place, whether it is the food, whether it is the t-shirts, all of these things, every I's and T's were ticked. So, you did ask, did anybody take any initiatives and everything? And I think that stood out. And I think those are the things that people are going to notice.
Yes.
And then say, okay, you know what, the next opportunity, hey, can you lead it? Because you took that particular thing on your own and you make that happen, and, raise their hand and said, okay, I will do it. So I think those are the things that's going to make people stand out. Anyone else wants to add anything?
One point on this, Joseph, like you rightly mentioned, one of the things which Kavita was talking about, opportunities. So yes, some of the opportunities you may not get outside, but yes, you can also work inside and get those opportunities, like the example. So yeah, so instead of just doing the job hunting for earning those opportunities, those could be found inside the same organization as well.
Yes.
It's just taking that first initiative and saying, yes, I will attempt this one. Yes, you may fail, but once you take that initiative, I've seen people will support you. There are always people who are going to help you and take you along with that journey. So
Absolutely.
that's my 2 cents on this one.
That's a good point. Yeah, thanks, Amit.
Thank you, Amit.
Hey Kavita, Meenakshi here. Hey, hi Joseph.
Hi.
How are you?
So finally, I'm fine. So we only
Yeah,
meet up on
first
LinkedIn.
time on virtually.
Yeah, I know,
Thank
I
you
know.
for joining.
So yeah, it's been my pleasure. I was telling Joseph, I did join late, but then I had some commitments. But I just wanted to touch upon what you're asking about initiatives, right, Kavita? And this is something that I've personally felt, right? I don't know how, what kind of leadership skills I had back in college, but I can tell you in the last 10 years, it's been different, right? So I have this reckless courage, if you will, right? I mean, that was the case for the first 5, 6 years. So it's like, I've been into mostly when asked for, I've been into crisis program management, right? So if they have any program which is kind of going red, I think default, I think you also kind of start attracting, right? You raise your hands for the first two and then you start attracting the same opportunities. So I've had really good experience. See, as a leader, I think it teaches you humility, because one of the programs I ran, in fact, we had people who were just coming out of other program ramp downs. They were not handpicked by me as such, right? So I had to just take over a team that was existing, right? And the client was just New York client, so you know how they are, very cutthroat and things like that. And they expect everything like yesterday, right? And they're never satisfied with whatever you do today or whatever you're going to do tomorrow. So in that program, the biggest I think the biggest learning for me as a leader was, first of all, to trust people, right? Everybody at the end of the day wants to do the right thing, okay? And then if you just trust people, even though they would have had their low points, like say the previous year or different other programs, under a pressure, people come to perform, and it's up to a leader to give them space to perform, okay? So I've personally seen that. And after that, I really judge people more as a point in time performance, right? So if a person is not performing well, say this year, I would just say, hey, that is just their performance for this year. Maybe in a different team, maybe in a different place. They are going to, come to their highest potential. So that's been a learning for me in terms of initiatives. And the second, after that reckless, courage, I've toned it down. I felt like, I'll burn out so easily. So I've taken the prefix, I've just kept it to courage. But the second thing I've tried to do of late is, let me push myself to see, how far this path will go, right? So recently we had a situation where we had a lot of people coming out of projects we didn't have. So we had a higher bench, if you will, right? So then some of those people were asked to, come to office to meet up with leaders. And I happened to see a bunch of 20 people walking in. And then I called these 10 girls who were part of that team. So for me, it is also something I attract, I guess. So I talked to these girls and I said, look, you know what? I'm not going to ask you guys to go through a common training. We're going to have a girls only training. And, I just want to do that because I feel in a technology space, girls are very shy in asking questions. Okay. So I said, we're going to give you that space to ask questions and, let's do this. So none of the HR dinged me on that. I just took the initiative. I said, any initiative I'll keep taking until somebody is going to dig me on that. So those were the two instances, Kavita, if you will, right? Where, you take initiatives and let things go. And it'll surprise you for sure about how far things can go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Meenakshi, for sharing that. I mean, that's very much needed. And I think you brought out a very important point of trust, right? That's something I think is, I see a lot lacking and people, especially managers, when they want to micromanage, right? I feel that it stems from a lack of trusting your team. So that's very, very important. And yeah, thank you. Keep pushing the girls in tech to ask more questions, and more power to you, Meenakshi.
Sure.
We were at 5, which says geography is destiny. Then he also talks about how do you find your next S curve, which he says is like your it's not like it's similar to the corporate ladder, but more from what you're doing today. He says of comfort zone. He's been doing it every 7 years. Like he moved from Cummins to a totally different one in Microsoft, and then entrepreneurship, right? So he says do what he calls as the portfolio life. It says don't just focus on only your corporate life, right? He says have a portfolio of things that you do. So this was a big lesson for me, right? At one point when I came back to the corporate world, it was only about work and then I started adding slowly things like, volunteering in the government school. Then I also took up to sports in the sense I started learning basketball by myself just before COVID kicked in. I took to bird photography. So I started adding a lot more things, which, it's like, all work and no play makes Jack or Jill dull, right? So adding those different facets to your life today, especially where people are really burnt out or stressed out, that adds more meaning. So he says, lead a portfolio life, have different set of projects. Then again, one of my favorites, he says, networks really matter. I'm a living example of that, right? He talks about how he got offers because he was connected to someone. Same as with my career, it's always been the jobs that I've got, I've always been through networks and through references. So anybody from the recruitment industry, sorry, you don't have my vote. It's always been the networks.
This is one thing that I insist on this Gravitas community as well, Kavita, is that make the network work for you. And I have changed about 6 to 7 engagements, and except one, everything came via referral. And when it comes via referral, including the government consulting that I had, it came via referral. And when it comes via the referral, you can kind of demand what you need rather than being very submissive to whatever that the other party, the corporate, is saying. Because if somebody is saying, okay, Joseph is the right person to do this particular job, you are already going in a very strong place. So you can have a lot more negotiation. And something that that you touched upon, that portfolio of life, I've always thought of as portfolio of bets, but portfolio of life, and then you have a wide variety. I think that is when you are also building the courage and all of those kinds of stuff. We normally think the personal life and the professional lives are two different stuff, but it is actually integrated. And what you do in the office reflects in the home, and what you do in the personal life reflects in the professional life as well. So I want to add that particular bit.
Yes, Joseph, and it's actually even if we talk from the organization development perspective, or it's also related to well-being, right? That you need to have different facets in your life, and not just it affects your mental health when you just focus on one aspect. So just a few more, which says 3 more things, right? He again talks about learn to live in that portfolio life. And there are 2 important things that he says is walk your own path. I think that's very, very crucial. What works for me may not work for you, will not work for somebody else. We do find similarities with other people, but he says walk your own path. Don't let anyone else lead your life. Don't go by herd mentality or what be in the rat race. Walk your own path. And then finally he says there's no such thing as retirement, right? So today we're having larger lifespans. So some bit of it, maybe again affirmation bias I may have, because even I believe there's no age for retirement. You just keep doing something useful to yourself, which you're feeling good. How you contribute to society and to people around you. So he says, with this current scenario, just try to be, don't look at retirement age, because even if, let's take lifespan is about 85 years and you tend to retire at 60, what will you do for the next 25 years? And finally, he talks about, in terms of happiness and success. So it is about how what is success to you, and what is being successful, and what is feeling success. So all that is related to happiness. Happiness can either be, it's not like you want to buy your own dream home and then then that it's over, right? That it's more a state of mind, and how to train your mind to be that. He says that is happiness. So I'll just take a pause here. And finally, he says, one thing that is really, keeps me going too, right? Don't postpone living. Make a bucket list and get going. So, just don't, you have one life, just live it.
Lovely, lovely, Kavita. About the retirement, I'm reading another book, Wiser, Happier, and Wealthier.
Okay.
This is a narrative or the biography of the top investors,
Okay.
and I'm reading the essay about Templeton, Sir John Templeton,
Okay.
and then he says this as well. In this life and economy, there is nothing called retirement. Be useful until the end,
Yes.
and you lived your life,
Yes.
right? So I read it just an hour before we started this session, so it is still fresh in my mind. And then you talked about this, and I also believe, I don't think there is a retirement as such. Yeah, you might move out from one job, because earlier they all had one job, and as you rightly shared, they join in one job and then they retire from that particular job. Today, we in a lifespan, probably, like, I'm probably one of the one who have a lesser number of job switches. I know people who have had in a span of 20 years, they have had, like, I know, maybe 30 jobs or whatsoever. And because of that, there is no retirement. You move on from one job to maybe doing something else.
Right.
It may not pay exactly the same amount as what you have been earning, but it will pay you something, and then you can do that. So as long as you are useful, I think that would be a good thing. Wonderful. Anyone else wants to add anything?
Yeah. Just one question, Kavita. You mentioned in the myths that the book was so interesting that you were able to finish it in 2 days. I understand you would have reread the book and imbibed some of the concept before this session, but you have also taken out a lot from this book and implemented in your life. So I want to understand, what is your reading, and then because there are so many pearls of wisdom in this book, how do you retain after a 2 days reading? Do you go back again to the book, or do you take notes, or how do you go about? What is your process?
Okay, there are two things, Gagan. One is, when I read a book right now, like this learning agility, growth mindset, leadership is all, those are things that really, there are some core concepts in any book that, that, that talks to you, right? That gets entrenched. So yes, I do take notes. Definitely, that's one habit I've started, so that, because you're not able to remember every bit, right? And then there are times when, I reread some of them, not necessarily the whole bit, but, where I feel that, this is something I need to revisit and reflect upon. Now, these 2 days, what I was talking about was, a Friday and a Saturday. So, and then, it was reading, reflecting, and, trying to understand. Then beyond that, even though you're not reading the book, you're reflecting. There's another book I read decades ago by Dale Carnegie called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, way back in my B school days. So there are actually two things that really, and I've not reread the book after that. Two things that are really stuck in my mind is constructive criticism, and in terms of that criticism, when somebody gives you, how to take it constructively and not, take it personally. That has helped me really, accept criticism, take feedback better. And secondly, he talks about how not to burn bridges. There are a lot of other things he talks in the book, but then these two things really, stuck in my head. I think there are books which, give you those 3-4 things, right? Takeaways, which you actually start implementing. And the more you apply, the more you implement, you're actually living that concept.
Thank you.
True. I told you, Kavita, the community won't be just about book reviews, as Gagan asked. We go and ask, okay, how do you implement? Do you reread? Do you take notes? How do you take notes? And so we're all book lovers, and from one book lover to a fellow book lover, hey, how do you find books? How do you read them? I mean, those are the questions that we ask and we debate.
What I'm looking for is actually, to follow a slide format, which Shiv Shankar follows, right? He does that religiously for every book. Something I started, but I have not been consistent on that. I think that is something that would help, go back to the books that you really like.
Gagan and others, one thing that I have seen, and that's how probably Kavita also attracts these opportunities. Kavita, after she reads this book, on LinkedIn, she posts a brief and what she learned and how she's implementing and so on and so forth. That's how I got connected to Kavita, and that's how I was, following, so to speak, Kavita on all of those kinds of stuff. And that's why I said, would you be able to review any book? So I think that is one thing that you can do. Almost all of us are on LinkedIn, and all of us are using LinkedIn for one thing or the other. Probably even after today, you can go in and say, okay, you know what? This is how I learned. Maybe 3 points. As Kavita said, yes, we discussed for 1 hour, maybe 10, 15 points we discussed. Maybe 1 point stuck with you or strike a chord with you. And then you can say, okay, for 1 hour, we had this particular session. Thank you, Kavita. And then these are 3 points I learned. And then, if all of us would do it, I think that'll get
Yes.
very much etched into our memory and brain. Any final comments, any final questions to Kavita?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks a lot, Kavita. It was such a beautiful session. I learned a lot out of this. I just wanted to make 1 or 2 things. The one was about courage, what Joseph was asking about leadership and courage. What I see is courage is feeling again and again without losing the enthusiasm. And that only drives us to leadership. And more of it is what Menu was said about giving that space for others to succeed in the space where you are responsible for things to happen. And that is true leadership for me. And one instance I want to share, some 2 decades back when I started my job, I was responsible for a team of about 20 people, and that was a big MNC. I had a small shop. So I noticed during the first few days that my team was not getting ample time for the lunch break. I wrote a letter to the managing director of the company that we should increase this time by another 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Sorry, 20 minutes. And they didn't did it that, but my team got to know that I have written something like this. So that brought so much of authority in their minds for me. So I think we should trust our teams, we should believe in them, and we should try to create that space, being truthful to them. And that is also true leadership for me. And that's from my side. Thanks a lot, Kavita. It was so engaging.
Thank you, Sukhwinder, for that. Yes, absolutely great thing that you did for the team. Definitely, lunchtime is a non-negotiable.
Joyce, you want to add anything? I think, yeah, go ahead, Joyce.
No, I'm just, there are too many takeaways. I'm just dumbstruck. That's what I would say. But it was a very, very engaging session. Thank you, Kavita.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you.
I think speaking up in this is also a kind of a courage.
Sorry, Joseph, I didn't get that.
I was saying speaking up in these forums is also a form of courage.
Yes.
And thank you, Kavita, for this insightful session. Basically, I joined late, but it was very, meaningful and insightful session. I was really interested to join, but somehow I was not able to join on time. But sorry for that. But still, it was really helpful to understand how to do the hacks in life and what's important. How this is a learning. So thanks for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Thank you.
So, Kavita, question for you. When are we going to expect your book to come out, Kavita?
Sorry, I didn't know. Oh, it was Meenakshi.
Only Meenakshi will ask that question.
Yeah, obviously.
What did she say? What did she say? Reckless courage, right?
Correct.
Yes. Meenakshi and I connect, I think we share
very often.
thinking and thought process. We've noticed that over our LinkedIn posts. Looking forward to meeting with you, Meenakshi, in person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should do that sometime. Yeah. And we'll talk about the book you're going to write, right? Then.
It's actually, I don't know, but I have something in my mind that I want to write about my father and his life. So
Okay, nice.
hopefully sometime in the future.
Sure, sure. That would be
Looking
good.
forward to it. By the way, I have a podcast interview with Meenakshi coming up in another
Wow.
4 weeks or so. I mean, it has come out really well. It was 30 minutes of pearls of wisdom.
Excellent. Looking forward to hearing that.
No. Yeah, we had
Amazing.
fun doing it, Kavita. It was more like friends talking, so I enjoyed the podcast as well. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Kavita, thank you so much. It was a lovely session, very engaging, and you shared from your own life experience, which is what I said. We in Gravitas Wins community, we expect. So thank you so much. And quite a lot of people came in as well. So thank you so much, Kavita. Yeah, Sukwinder, good to see you. Meenakshi, Ashwini, Manish, Rajneesh, Shurbi, quite a few new people, Srilata, Padma, Joyce, Priya, Amit, Gagan, and Sukwinder. Thank you so much for joining in and asking questions and sharing your experiences as well. Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.